Susie Freeman. I am current president of NAWBO right now until end of June. And I want to welcome you guys and thank you for taking time out of your day and coming today. I'm going to briefly touch on NAWBO. NAWBO was founded in 1975. The National Association of Women Business Owners, it's the unified voice of over 11.5 million women in the United States and now Mexico. We've branched, I think we have 1 or 2 chapters in Mexico now, which is quite amazing. NAWBO's statement, it's bold and powerful, and it's so good that they trademarked it. Get a seat at the table or build your own table, and make sure to include other women. And that's one thing I do notice we do here at NAWBO. We always include the other women at the table and we make room for you. And speaking of a seat at the table, if you guys aren't aware, when DC discusses policy around women businesses, small businesses, and the like, they have a place for NAWBO. They call our president, they call on national. So we literally have a seat at the table in DC. And we have a seat at the table here. We're fighting for you, women business owner, on the local level and the national level. We want to hear what you need, we want to hear what you're thinking, and we want to take that to the lobbyists and stuff for you. And national pays for lobbyists. We have lobbyists on our team that are there fighting for you every day. Oh, and I will bring up, if you haven't had the opportunity, if you're really loving advocacy, in June, every year we do DC, National does DC. And if you want time with your Congress people or anyone over in DC, NAWBO will set that meeting up for you and take care of that for you if you come. I think this year it's June 2nd through the 5th, something like that. I'll send an email out to you guys. While I wrap this up and get ready to introduce you to our amazing president-elect, Tanea Hairston, I wanted to talk briefly about the Women with Vision Conference. So Women with Vision Conference, it's a one-day conference that invites women in business statewide. We want you to join in the conversation as we discuss the greater impact we can have collectively. You'll hear from state leaders, trailblazers, women breaking barriers, and women in business as they share their best practices, tips and advice, and solutions for business owners. Thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule and coming here to celebrate our amazing nominees and winners of the 2024 Women with Vision Awards. And then I want to have you please help me welcome Tanea Hairston. She's going to moderate our first fireside chat.
Thank you, Susie. Good morning, everyone. I am so glad to be here with you all today for our first Women with Vision conference. I'm really proud to have the opportunity to introduce Christina Estes. Christina Estes is right here. She has had a 20-year career covering crime, public policy, and business right here in Phoenix. Her reporting career has been featured nationally on CBS, NPR, locally in print, online, radio. Christina currently reports for KJZZ. It's a local NPR member station where she covers the Phoenix City Hall. Christina's reporting career inspired her to begin another career, which is what we're going to talk about today, and that is as an author. Her mystery, Off the Air, features a Phoenix TV reporter investigating the murder of a controversial talk show host. Now, while it's fiction, Off the Air features real Valley references and local businesses. Off the Air is available for pre-order wherever books are sold and will be published in hardcover, along with electronic and audio versions on March 26th. So with that being said, Christina Estes, welcome to the Women with Vision, and please join us.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks so much. First, can I say thank you, everybody, for showing up, because showing up counts. We all have busy lives, so thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to be here and asking me.
Okay, so you've had a really successful reporting career. As I mentioned, 20 years.
More than 20, but I just say more than 20 because I don't have to do the math then.
Yeah. So now that you're beginning your career as an author, the first question I really want to ask and want to talk about is, what made you actually want to write this book, or write a book, period?
You know, when you're a kid and there's always at least one adult, usually more, that says, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, my answer was always an author because I devoured books. I was a total bookworm. As I grew up, though, I never met an author. I never knew anybody who ever pursued writing as a career. I mean, I never heard of that before. But I did read newspapers and magazines because I loved reading. And so I saw reporters in newspapers and magazines, on TV, on radio. So that led me to study journalism. And I've always just loved mysteries. I love reading series, mystery series. And there are so many set in cities like LA and New York and San Francisco and Chicago. And I want to read more in Phoenix. Phoenix is where I live. So I said, I'm going to write a mystery set in Phoenix.
I love that. I love that. So we'll get more into the book in a few minutes, but let's talk about the journey, right? Starting from, where you are today and then preparing for that national book launch. I really want to dive into the journey because we as women love hearing about that. So share that with us.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so one day I said, I'm going to write a book, and voila, 15 years later, here I am. 15 years. So there was, as you might imagine, a lot of rejection. So there was a lot of writing and being rejected, and writing and rejection, and writing and rejection. And I had, oh my gosh, more than 100 agents rejected me. And so breaking into traditional publishing, and in the publishing industry, they refer to the big five. So there are like 5 big old companies in New York that do most of the traditional publishing. And so that's the route I wanted to take. And breaking into traditional publishing is a little like breaking into the music business or acting. Like, you have to have an agent. That agent then has to find an editor who falls in love with what you're doing. That editor then has to sell your work to a whole committee of people who don't know and don't care anything at all about you. All they're doing is crunching numbers, because publishing is a business. It is a for-profit business. So they have to convince salespeople and marketing people that there actually is a market for this book. You have to get through all of those people before you're offered a publishing contract. So it is, a journey, to say the least. And then I also went in naive because I thought, I'm a writer, because I'm a reporter, right? I write every day, and so how hard can it be to write a book, right? It's hard. Harder than I thought.
Yeah, no. So you raise a really interesting point, right? Because we all know as women business owners, just because we set out to do something, right, doesn't mean it's going to happen in the way that we envision it's going to happen. We all know that. So from your narrative of setting out to write this book, how did you handle it? Because that's something that everyone in this room can relate to. So how did you handle that? That's really important.
Once I realized that being a reporter does not automatically make me a novelist, I realized, well, I better learn how to be a novelist.
Yeah.
So it was attending workshops, it was reading books on the craft of writing, it was finding people who did it. Yeah. And I have, I would say, unofficial mentors in different areas. I found an organization that was incredibly helpful, similar to NAWBO. It's called Sisters in Crime. It's an international group. It was actually started in the 80s by a small group of women who felt that women were not invited to the table when it came to crime fiction. So in the 80s, if you look at the popular crime, it was predominantly white men. There were very few women writers, and there were even fewer writers of color. So Sisters in Crime was started as a way to support other women crime writers and to learn from each other and to, cheerlead and help more get a seat at the table. That has really changed and been really impactful. And so Sisters in Crime, to the point that recently there was a discussion of changing the name to maybe Siblings in Crime or something, so that people know that it is now open to everyone. Because there's still a lot of work to be done. While women as a group are now much more prevalent in the crime fiction genre, writers of color are not. That is changing. I've seen it change a lot in the last few years. So Sisters in Crime is an organization that I'm proud to be involved with because it advocates and educates, and it's a great group. Like NAWBO, we have chapters, and I helped actually I was a founding member of a local chapter of Sisters in Crime. That's how important and valuable it was to me.
Yeah. So I think it's important to really recap that, right? Because you had the vision, But then, we talked about how did you get there? And you said, number one, you started to educate yourself. Number two, you said that you found a mentor. And number three, you found community. Interestingly, those aligned with the NAWBO's tenets,
Right.
really, right? So that's beautiful. No matter what it is that we're doing, once we have that vision, having and focusing on those three things can be a path that can take us to where we want to go. Okay, perfect. So what surprised you about the publishing industry? Let's dive there, because this is where your focus is now.
Wow, a lot, but I would say the number of people involved in the book. Like, there are more people who touched this book along the way than I will ever know. It's my book and I wrote it, but again, I mentioned my agent and my editor, but the publisher, they have a gazillion people involved. There's a publicist and there's the marketing team. There are the sales people that try to get bookstores and libraries to buy them. The people that print the books, put them together, ship them out. I mean, I have my first, okay, let me not cry. Oh gosh, okay. 15 years. So I just found out my first books made it to the warehouse, like the final version.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Very nice, very nice.
So the hardcover, and they're shipping, there's a bookstore in New York.
Very nice.
Thank you. There was a bookstore in New York that asked if I would sign some copies so they could feature it for their Book of the Month Club. I'm like, asked, yes. So I have 4 boxes on the way. Last night got the UPS tracking number.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be signing my very first book. So that is one thing. And emotions, I had no idea, because trust me, as a reporter, I'm kind of known as a hard ass. But I have never cried so much as I have in the last year. And which leads to a story about, this Gen Xer learned something from a millennial that she is so grateful for. A year ago this month, I attended a writers' conference, and it was also a readers' conference. It was a big conference of crime fiction, so there were writers and readers, fans there. And I was invited to be on a panel, with 3 authors. And I'm not doing this to drop names, I'm doing this because I want you to know they were so kind. Oh, I didn't bring tissue. So J.A. Jance is a New York Times bestselling author, and she her quote, her endorsement is on the cover of my book. 2 of her series are set in Arizona. She's been an idol of mine. Ann Hillerman, who picked up writing her father's series. Oh, thank you so much. Oh my God, I hope this is not shared publicly. Trust me, people who knew me when I worked in TV news would never believe this. So J.A. Jance and Ann Hillerman, who picked up writing after her father passed, Tony Hillerman, those novels. And those novels were the first regional mysteries that became national bestsellers, and I won a prize through the Tony Hillerman group, which is how I got my publishing contract. And then the third author is Ramona Emerson, and it was her debut. It was longlisted for the National Book Award, which is a really, really huge honor. So, and then there's me, whose book hadn't even come out. So there's these 3 amazing women, and then who am I? So I knew I was gonna be like this. Ugh. So I said, I'm gonna talk about it, psych myself, just, you can do this, right? The whole I am worthy thing, like, let's do that, stand like Wonder Woman, do all these things. And it wasn't working, so I skipped a panel I wanted to attend before my panel. And I did my breathing and I did some yoga stretches, and it still wasn't working. So I said, okay, let me just acknowledge it. Like, when we get up there, I'm just gonna say, can I please just acknowledge this, and then we can move on and be good.
Yeah.
And so they did the introduction, asked the first question. I said, can I please just take a second to acknowledge? And then I cried, ugly cried, worse than what you just saw. And everyone was so supportive. And eventually I got over it, because I didn't want to take away from the other authors' enjoyment and stuff, but everybody's so kind in the crime fiction community. And later that night, I'm getting to my millennial advice. I shared this horror story with Erin E. Adams, who was a debut author at the time. And she said, oh my gosh, you need to follow Taylor Swift's advice. What is Taylor Swift's advice? Okay, what does the billionaire have to tell me? And she said she watched a graduation speech that Taylor Swift gave, which said, embrace cringe. You can't run from it, embrace it. So I'm still learning, as you can tell, but that's really been an eye-opener, embrace cringe, and I suspect I'm gonna have to do that quite a bit in this next month.
Yeah. I really appreciate your vulnerability there and sharing that with us, right? And I think a beautiful takeaway from that is it doesn't really matter how old we are or where we're at or what our career has been, is that if we get clear on really what we want to do and how we want to spend our time for the rest of our life, if you will, that it's never too late to kind of make that detour and have that vision be accomplished in our own life. So I appreciate you sharing that with us, and I appreciate the empathy that we can take away from that. So we may have others in the audience that may want to be. Oh, sorry. We may have others in the audience that may want to brand themselves as authors, right? They've had a beautiful career and they have something that they want to share and give to the world, right? So if that's the case, then what advice do you have for others that are aspiring to be authors? Would you share that with us?
Well, you could save several years if you recognize that you're not automatically a writer like I thought I was. And we sort of discussed finding a community is really important. And knowing that you really have to hustle. I mean, I'm so fortunate, and I love my publisher, I really do. They're in New York, though. They don't always get us. And I'm also new, and it's not like I'm Stephen King and I have this proven track record of selling a ton of books. So I'm not their only author. I don't get their undivided attention. I have to hustle a lot. And I mean, you have to do that with whatever your business is, whatever your brand is, and it's not always comfortable. And I really had, I think I told you it was sort of a come to Jesus meeting with myself about, like, this is it, right? It took 15 years to get here, so shut up and do what you need to do it. So this is why I brought this. This is a sign that I took to local businesses that are actually mentioned in the book. They did, I'm showing up, like cold calls, oh my gosh. Anybody who can make a living doing that, you deserve every penny you get. So I showed up with this, and that's not something I would have done, a year ago. And I want to say one thing that really has helped me tremendously is a book that I read, and I just read it like 6 or 8 weeks ago. I read it and knew that it wasn't enough, so I got the audio version and listened to it as I walk. I don't know how many people know Shonda Rhimes, but Shonda Rhimes, so let me cry again. So Shonda Rhimes wrote, this is a great example of books never expire, because her book came out 6 or maybe 8 years ago. It's called Year of Yes. And so Tisha's read it. Yes, it is so amazing. And if you don't like to read it, do the audiobook, because it's just like a friend talking to you, telling you really good advice in an entertaining way. So Year of Yes, Shonda wrote because at one point her sister had said to her, you never say yes to anything. And that was me, like, especially since COVID. I could just stay home with my dog all the time, and that's good. Like 6 months ago, I would not have agreed to do this. But reading this book has really been life-changing for me because it's making me step outside my comfort zone, which is what the whole book is about, is saying yes to things, to challenge yourself. So I'm getting much better at that. But, and I would love to get your thoughts on this, this is an area that I still really suck at, and probably a lot of us do, and I didn't recognize it until I read the book. And Shonda gave an example of being at some big event in LA where it was like most influential women in Hollywood. And these are like power players, right? And so someone stands up and does the introductions for the people who are gonna be honored. And every woman, when they were like, this person's so great, they did this, this, and this, they were like, oh, kind of like, oh, not me, or don't look at me. And Shonda Rhimes was like, what the hell is wrong with us? Like, what is wrong with saying, yes, I'm good, and I did it. And I'm still working on that, because I want to be able to say, yes, I am proud of my book, but there's sort of sometimes you feel like you don't want to be braggy, right? You don't want to come across as braggy or all about yourself. It's a difficult line. Maybe I need to reread the chapter.
I think you're doing fantastic, right? Because it never is easy, right? Number one, to establish clarity That's what you did first. And then number two, to establish vision around that clarity, and then strategy, and then to go after it. That's the one thing that we all share here together. That's what connects us all as women business owners, is that we had to get clear on what we wanted to do and how we're going to do it. And we like being around women like you. We do. I can say that, from experience, because we all resonate with different parts of your story, right? Whether it's standing in our own, whether it's having a community, whether it's mentorship, whatever it is. So really want to applaud you for that. What aspects of reporting, let's go back to that, did you use based off of your experience that helped you in this new role?
I love, this is going to sound very geeky, but not to you guys maybe. I actually really love public policy. Very few. Thank you, Deborah. I do, because it impacts us. It impacts our personal and our professional lives. So I really enjoy covering stories about how public policy impacts neighborhoods and businesses. And my sequel that I'm working on actually has a City Hall connection, and some development and that sort of thing. So I've been here for more than 20 years reporting, so I've covered a variety of topics, and that experience certainly plays a key role in the book, because the book is about a Phoenix TV reporter. And it's all set in Phoenix with real places, and my love for Phoenix, I think, shines through. When I finished writing it, I didn't realize until I had finished writing it that it's really a love letter to Phoenix. Not like, I'm 16, head over heels, that kind of love, but more like, we've been together 20 years and it works, right? Like, we've been through some stuff. So I'm very excited that Phoenix will be in the literary spotlight with that, and my love hopefully will get out there.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay, now I'm going to put you on the spot here. We've all had to craft an elevator pitch, right, for our businesses, and come up and practice what those lines are that we can share with others that describe us as a brand or our businesses as the brand. So, what's your elevator pitch?
Wow, that's a setup. Okay, embrace cringe, remember. Off the Air introduces Jolene Garcia, a local TV reporter in Phoenix who's really trying to cover stories that matter in a society that just seems obsessed with clicks and likes and reels. When a controversial radio talk show host dies on the air, Jolene's managers are ecstatic because she had the last interview. So they are ahead of the group until national media swoop into Phoenix, bringing bigger budgets and getting better scoops, and Jolene ends up fighting not only for her job, but for her life. Woo, thanks, Tish. Thank you. I did it without crying, hey.
No, I love that vulnerability, right? Because, all of us probably can relate. There are times where we have had to put on that persona to stand firm with what we know that we want to do, irregardless of what else is going on around us. So I love that. Let's talk a little bit about, in the book, you share local businesses, you share references to local businesses, you share real Valley references. So what made you want to take from this and actually include those components in your work about the local community?
So I'm going to take two parts, if it's okay. So there's a couple of examples in the book are real stories that I covered, and I just tweaked them a little so I can say it's fiction, wink, wink. But one of my favorite stories involved a real neighborhood in Phoenix that came to celebrate a business being demolished. Now, don't get upset. Let me explain the business. It wasn't an operating business. So it was an old restaurant that had sat vacant for years and years, and there had been burglaries and break-ins and loiterings and fires. I mean, it was blight, and it was attracting a bad element to the neighborhood. And residents got together and worked with the city and went through a legal process where they eventually got a judge to say, you can demolish it, because the owner was not responding to anything. So these residents brought sparkling grape juice and balloons and a cake, and they set up a table in the parking lot, and celebrated the demolition. And I was there for that, and I loved it. It's one of my favorite stories because it takes so much work to do something, right? To make a real change. And so I included that reference in Off the Air. Okay. And then tons of businesses too. Not tons, but, well, yeah, tons. A lot of local businesses, because I wanted to, it's set in Phoenix, and I wanted to celebrate local businesses and businesses that had special meaning to me.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So if you eat at Rito's Mexican food is in there. Does anybody know Rito's? They have several locations, but I mentioned two locations in there. Chicago Hamburger Company is mentioned, Welcome Diner, Soretta's Candy. Their French mints are to die for. So I put them in an Emmy scene. I know there's little candies on the table here. In my Emmy party scene, it's Soretta's mints. So I love that, and they're gonna be able to, it'll be an audiobook, so they'll be able to hear the narrator read their business name as well as in the physical book. So
I love it. So what future projects now are you working on? Share those with us.
On the reporting side, I'm working on a story about safety at public parks, at parks in Phoenix, and then I'm also working on an economic development story about downtown and sort of what the future of downtown will look like. There has been talk for a couple of years, and of course COVID screwed up everything, right? About expanding the convention center as well as adding an entertainment district right outside the convention center to stay competitive, and also to be available for anybody, not just people who are attending conventions. So those are two stories, public policy stories that I'm working on. And as far as my author hat, I am so thrilled to say I'm working on a sequel because my goal has been to have a mystery series set in Phoenix. So the sequel to Off the Air, if you read Off the Air and if you are kind of a local political geek, it ends in a way that may sound familiar to you. So I'm gonna pick it up with the second book, and I'm beyond thrilled because did I say it's taken 15 years? It's taken 15 years, so yay, that's what I'm doing. I'm really excited, so thank you for asking that.
Yeah. So I think there's some wonderful takeaway points that we can take from this, as women with vision in our own lives that you shared so vulnerably. And that's number one, being really clear, like this is what I want to do now, this is why I want to do it now, and the how. And then just understanding that no matter what, we know this, right? That it's never like that smooth path that, that we would love.
The overnight success, yeah.
But then embracing those triumphs along the way and celebrating those triumphs. So it's nice to see the sparkle in your eye as I'm sitting here chatting.
Those are tears glistening.
Yeah, but you also really light up when you talk about this. And so that's one thing that, we all can take away from this is, having work and being inspired by our work that actually allows us to make the impact that we want to have and, make the change that we want to have and, being clear about how we want to spend it. So I want to thank you so much for coming to spend today with us.
Can I thank you for summarizing it? Because I don't feel like any of that is what I got across, so thank you. You made it sound like I almost knew what I was talking about.
You did well. So thank you so much for coming to share your story and being vulnerable with us and then giving us your time. And thank you, ladies, for spending your time with that. I want to invite Susie back up, and I'm going to let her continue with the rest of the Women with Vision today. Thank you so much.
Hurry up quick, El Jefe's coming soon. Sit up straight when she enters the room. Be enthused, but don't look too amused. This is her queendom, please respect her rule.